As I was talking with Norman regarding this Iran issue, but there has been over the weekend a very significant meetup of those who are in power. Of course, I'm talking about the Munich Security Conference, in which some of the themes that include under destruction, crisis of the international order. It warned that the global norms and institutions are increasingly under strain with rising geopolitical fragmentation and declining confidence in multilateral governance. Includes erosion of trust in democratic processes, shifts toward wrecking ball politics rather than constructive international engagement, and of course, increased risks to global cooperation, trade, climate action, and conflict management. One of those things that took to the attention of my study was that the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the UN Security Council is not working the way it was meant to be. Of course, all of these comments was made at the security conference. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio had visited this place, and there were some comments that he made. I would want to know how you felt and what was the general consensus regarding this issue.
Well, it's a very important year. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon here in Bangladesh. Happy Chinese New Year, and I hope you enjoyed Falgun. It was a good day. Well, Rubio's comments to the Munich Security Council differed substantially from those that were made by J.D. Vance in the past. They were much more conciliatory, more thoughtful. He talked about the alliance, the partnership between Europe and the United States. He offered the position that, just basically the United States grew out of Europe by migration of the European people in the European community to the United States to settle it and so forth. And so there was a natural partnership, a natural alliance, and they should continue to build on that. And I thought that was very appropriate for him to say. He was less contentious than previously had been. But he did say, and was very clear, that, you guys got to up your game. You need to be much better at what you're doing and be ready for what you're doing and work with us on this kind of a partnership. The point you're making, however, about the lack of leadership by the UN Security Council and the fact that the post-war rules-based order is deteriorating was said by many people at that conference, the Germans, the French, as you say, the EU, the head of the EU delegation as well. And it says something about the fact that that unilateralism seems to be recognized as having a destructive force on partnership all around Europe, and that the United States' actions are undermining this relationship in some respects, at least in terms of the rules-based order. And what that means basically is that there are norms and standards that are set that every country agrees to. They're perhaps not written down as clearly as they might be, but that people operate within a structure that preserves this integrity of the partnership and the rules of law, the rules of commerce, the rules of trade, and all of these organizations that were set up, the WTO and the like, are all basically designed to sort of structure the relationship between the parties. If you take that away, it's every man for himself, and it's a bit chaotic. So I hope that that cooler heads prevail, as they say, and that people begin to look at partnerships in a positive way, and that multilateralism will continue to be the defining relationship between Europe and the United States. Otherwise, every country is going to be individually a part of a separate negotiation on trade and investment, and I think that breaks the relationship in NATO as well. So it's very risky strategy to take.
It remains a matter of international concern. And now the Israeli administration that is currently running that government is seeing a way or to undermine that process of clearly signifying or signaling which territory is theirs. 25 Palestinians were injured, and that number keeps on rising as the day goes on. When geopolitics is concerning a matter of territory, Donald Trump is, of course, involved in the Board of Peace, and many other nations have now been opened up to this high-stakes baller game. Of course, there is a join-in, just like you would have on a poker table, similarly on to this Board of Peace. So I want to know from John Dalton, the implication of the deaths are still going on, even though ceasefire, the word has been used to describe from last October till today, that death toll number has been going up.
Yeah, well, I mentioned at the time when they talked about the ceasefire that it did not include the West Bank. And I was concerned about that at the time, and I'm now even more concerned. Since the ceasefire, so-called, has been signed, over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank. Hundreds others have been displaced. And the typical settler community with the IDF will work and go into and destroy people's homes and drive them out of an area that they have been living in for hundreds of years, let's say. The West Bank is extremely volatile. There's no, there are many, many Israeli Arabs, so-called, who live there, who are Israelis, who are eligible to participate in government. But this action is born of the same kind of mentality that from the river to the sea, as they say, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea belongs to us, the Jewish community, the Israeli community. And that mentality means that the post-Oslo Accords, which divided the West Bank into 3 separate zones, A, B, and C, which designated which part of them was exclusively for Palestinians, which part was under joint control, and which part was purely Israel. The settlers don't respect that accord at all, and that any shepherd who has land there, any olive grower who's had land there for years, who is living under the joint administration, so-called, these people go in and destroy their homes, destroy their crops, destroy their plantation. And it's under the radar because it's outside the agreement between the United States and Israel and Gaza on the ceasefire. But it clearly violates international law. It violates the Oslo Accords, so-called, which were enacted to try to maintain some balance in the West Bank. And it's totally sort of designed to capture all of the land in the West Bank and to basically drive out the Palestinians. Now, the West Bank has enormous number of Palestinian settlements there. Hebron is a major city people hear about. That's a Palestinian city. It's constantly under attack. There are other areas as well. So if we allow these settlers to run roughshod over the areas on the West Bank, we'll be back inciting again some kind of a conflict in the Middle East, which is bred of the aggression by the Israeli government, which seems to be outside of the control of any kind of international legal mandate.